Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump welcomes Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House. What they have to say about Trump's peace plan for Gaza. New details about the suspected church gunman in Michigan and an update on the victims from officials. The court-appointed counsel for the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk appeared in their first court hearing today. With the looming government shutdown around the corner, a White House meeting is set to hash out disagreements. Democrats doubling down on their demands, Republicans insisting their plan is nonpartisan. The Trump administration seeks to ramp up the use of coal plants. How this can help push back against the Chinese Communist Party. New tariffs for heavy trucks, pharmaceutical drugs, and more are set to go into effect on October 1st. Are 100% tariffs too high a barrier? What's the impact?
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. President Trump is hosting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. They're discussing Trump's 21-point peace plan to end the war in Gaza. According to Arab officials familiar with the matter, the president's peace proposal calls for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages within 48 hours, a gradual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and the dismantling of the Hamas terrorist group. Trump said he was very confident of achieving peace in Gaza as he welcomed Netanyahu. This is Netanyahu's fourth visit to the White House since Trump's second term. He is seeking to shore up U.S. support. The two leaders are holding a closed-door meeting with aides. They're expected to appear together for a press conference soon. Authorities are working to determine why an ex-Marine drove his pickup truck into a Michigan church during a Sunday service. The suspect opened fire and set the building ablaze, killing at least 4 people before he died in a shootout with police. Federal and local authorities briefed the media moments ago. Listen. Officials said the FBI is investigating this as an act of targeted violence, and they're still working to determine a motive. According to the medical staff, at least 8 patients were taken to local hospitals on Sunday. 2 of them are still in critical condition. Police have identified the suspect as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford. The White House says the suspect was a former Marine veteran who served in Iraq. Investigators believe the gunman deliberately set the blaze using gasoline. In a social media post, President Trump wrote, quote, "Pray for the victims and their families. This epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately." The White House is closely monitoring the deadly shooting in Michigan. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Fox News this morning that she spoke to FBI Director Kash Patel.
Based on my conversations with the FBI director, all they know right now is this was an individual who hated people of the Mormon faith. And they are trying to understand more about this, how premeditated it was, how much planning went into it, whether he left a note. All of those questions have yet to be answered, but certainly will be answered by the FBI.
Leavitt said the FBI director told her that the suspect is a Marine Corps veteran and served in Iraq. He is a member of the local Michigan community, and his family is cooperating with the FBI. She said the agency is executing search warrants at the residencies of the suspect and trying to get to the bottom why he committed such an atrocity. The press secretary noted that the Trump administration is committed to fully investigating, prosecuting, and preventing such crimes. Today, state and law enforcement officials shared updates on the case and the conditions of victims.
In the past 24 hours, our investigative squads and specialty teams have been out all night, exhausting leads, some of which have been coming in from the public via tips. Our special agents, victim specialists, child advocate forensic interviewers, and local partners have interviewed over 100 victims and witnesses to date and are continuing to interview individuals as we speak.
Investigators say a 40-year-old man set fire to the church and then opened fire yesterday morning. Grand Blanc Township Police Chief William Renee shared today that the suspect had been arrested in the past for burglary and operating while intoxicated. The chief also explained that the church is still being processed, but everyone has been accounted for. Renee also confirmed 5 deaths, including the suspect. He said 8 people were hurt. The hospital chief of staff at Henry Ford Genesis said the patients ranged from 6 to 78 years old. Dr. Michael Danek said one person, who was shot multiple times, is still in critical condition. He said 3 victims suffered smoke inhalation.
We had a number of our residents who were members of the church and were on site. Not only were they victims, they were also first responders. And having your friends and family come in injured and taking care of them is a really incredible experience. They were heroes. Those on the scene were absolute heroes, going in and out of the fire to drag people out, helping each other take care of the victims on the scene.
The church has been declared a total loss from the fire. The incident is being investigated as an act of targeted violence. The Trump administration is seeking to reverse the decline of the use of coal plants. Previous administrations worked to phase out coal as an energy source. Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum says coal use is still growing globally, especially in China.
We're in a competition, and that competition for the AI arms race, as we call it, is with China. China, absolutely the number one user of coal, and they are aggressively adding more power. Our nation can lead in technology, but if we don't lead in electrical production, we're going to lose the AI arms race. This is an interesting time in history because this is the first time in the history of the planet where a kilowatt of electricity can be converted directly into intelligence.
Burgum added that many coal mines also hold critical minerals, which the U.S. is currently buying from China. So the secretary suggests expanding coal use would also help the U.S. be less reliant on its adversaries. The Department of the Interior will now open over 13 million acres of federal land for coal leasing. And Energy Secretary Chris Wright also talked about the issue this morning. He says the administration is setting to invest $625 million to expand the coal industry. Coal burning plants generated about 15% of electricity in the U.S. in 2024. That's a fall from 50% in 2000. Fracking and other drilling methods have hiked natural gas output. Solar and wind power growth have also cut coal use. And the coal workforce was almost cut in half in the last 10 years, down from 70,000 down to 40,000. President Trump made a new tariff announcement today. He wrote on Truth Social that the United States will impose a 100% levy on all movies made outside the country. The president says the movie-making business has been stolen from the U.S. by other countries. Trump described that as stealing candy from a baby. The president singled out California, criticizing its governor, saying the state has been especially hard hit. The president first floated the idea of a movie tariff in May, but offered very little details. Shares of Netflix were down over 1% in early trading. 3 defense attorneys appointed by a Utah judge on behalf of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, appeared in their first hearing today in court. Utah defense attorney Catherine Nestor has been appointed as Robinson's lead attorney. Nestor has been lead or co-counsel on 9 aggravated murder cases across the country. She was joined today by 2 other public defenders who will assist with Robinson's defense. Nestor asked for a 30-day delay of a preliminary hearing in which the judge would determine if there is enough evidence to move forward with charges. She said she was not waiving her client's right to have the hearing, but she needed time to review the evidence gathered in the case so far. The judge scheduled the next hearing for October 30th. A government shutdown is possible beginning midnight tomorrow as Democrats double down on their demands. President Trump is expected to meet with lawmakers today to work out disagreements. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
The clock is running out to avert a government shutdown. Democrats say if Republicans want the votes, they'll be forced to repeal parts of the recently passed Big Beautiful Bill. They're also demanding Republicans to extend tax subsidies for Obamacare.
In order to find a bipartisan path forward to fund the government, avoid a reckless Republican shutdown, and deal with the healthcare crisis that Republicans have created.
Republicans insist negotiations can happen after their 7-week short-term funding bill expires.
We didn't add a single partisan priority or policy rider at all. We're operating completely in good faith to give more time. The only thing that would gut health care, using his own phraseology there, is if we took Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer's demand here? Because they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals.
The short-term extension passed the House but failed in the Senate. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer insisting that the White House hear out his demands before any Democrats get on board.
We need a real negotiation, that you don't do this by one party putting together a completely partisan bill and saying take it or leave it.
President Trump is expected to meet with congressional leaders later today. If an agreement isn't reached by Tuesday at midnight, the government will shut down, and the administration plans to lay off more federal workers. Education Department leaders already announced its plans. The agency will furlough most of its employees. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
New tariffs are coming soon. Joining us now to discuss is Daniel Lacalle. He's the chief economist at Tresses Hedge Fund, international financial analyst, and author of the book Freedom or Equality. Daniel, good afternoon. Always good to see you. So, as you know, President Donald Trump has announced a new set of tariffs that will go into effect October 1st. So the tariffs will be on heavy trucks, pharmaceutical drugs, kitchen cabinets, and other types of furniture as well. Do you think there has been excessive imports from overseas manufacturers into the U.S. for these products?
I'm not sure that we have a figure that suggests that there's been excessive exports. What we know is that what the Trump administration is doing is literally targeting very, very directly those sectors that have the highest level of global overcapacity, i.e., these are the sectors that need to export to the United States in order to avoid a working capital challenge. And that is probably more what is going on, is that the Trump administration understands that these sectors don't have any significant alternative to sell their products to rather than the United States. So at the same time, understands that the exporters will absorb the tariffs. In any case, I think that it's also, as it is always in terms of the trade agreements between the United States and other countries, something that is subject to negotiations.
Do you feel like, for example, 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals is a too high a barrier? What would be the impact of that?
Well, let's start from why. No, when we look at the price of drugs globally, we see that the United States price is significantly higher and sometimes double, triple the one in other countries. That is why. That is because the United States is paying for the entirety of research and development in many drugs, while other countries subsidize those drugs. So I think that it's basically a way, like we have seen with the trade agreements, to reach some kind of settlement with other nations in which they absorb or accept to finance part of that research and development that they're currently not paying at all. No, so I think that that is the reason. And again, I come back to the point that all these announcements are made in a similar fashion to what we saw in the Liberation Day, which is to first create a shock and then bring people to the negotiation table.
And Daniel, as well, I'm wondering if tariffs on pharmaceuticals is slightly different from tariffs on other products, because, for example, is this an issue of national security as well? Because it looks like he's targeting drugs made by companies that aren't building their factories here in the U.S.
Well, there's that double element, of course. The administration wants to bring back manufacturing, and a lot of the pharmaceutical companies have sent a significant part of their manufacturing process abroad, not even to Western countries, but to Asian countries and to China, to India, and that can create a problem of national security. Therefore, I think that the package or the, let's say that the idea behind these announcements is to bring companies and bring nations to the table and reach some form of agreement, which has been obviously very successful with all of the trade agreements that we have seen so far. That is basically the idea. A lot of people are focusing way too hard on the headline of, oh my God, we're going to see 100% increase in drug prices. No way. It's not going to happen that way. Actually, there is a likelihood that if manufacturing is brought back into the United States, and at the same time, part of the research and development is financed by other nations, not just the United States, drug prices will go down.
So I understand your position that tariffs itself won't make drug prices more expensive, but will it make drugs more expensive simply by the fact that it is being made in the U.S. potentially, if more countries are producing in the U.S., and versus importing it from other countries?
That's a very good point, because a lot of people don't understand that one of the things that has led to the current trade negotiations that we're seeing is that in many cases, manufacturing of products has not become cheaper by sending it abroad. It might have been easier in terms of taxation, might have been easier in terms of regulation, but not cheaper. And this is a key factor. We have not seen the alleged benefit of very cheap products, particularly in the pharmaceutical sector, coming from manufacturing outside of the United States. In any case, the United States has enough competitive manufacturing capability, as we have seen with so many drugs that are currently produced 100% in the United States. It's not like you need to suddenly bring an entire manufacturing cycle in the United States. It's simply to bring the manufacturing to already existing terminals and plants.
Okay, Daniel, can I also ask you about a question from the perspective of other countries? What would the impact of these tariffs be on countries that export these products to the U.S., like, for example, the European pharmaceutical companies?
Oh, it would certainly mean higher costs. It would certainly mean lower margins. They have enormous margins. I don't think that they will worry about taking a small dent in their margins and improving the trade relationship with the United States. I think that this is part of a negotiation that should have happened way long ago, quite long ago, I would say. Yeah.
Can I also ask you a question related to investment? Given these tariffs potentially going into effect in October, how are you adjusting your investment strategy, if at all? How would you give advice to your clients?
Well, every time that we talk with clients and we talk about the likelihood of an impact of tariffs, we always say, start from the premise of lower margins on the exporters. So look at those companies that depend on exports to the United States to maintain their sales and earnings guidance, because that's where you may see an adjustment, not a destruction, but certainly an adjustment of the expectations of earnings growth or margins. I think that's, and I think that if you look at how the S&P 500 and the Euro and the Stock 600 are behaving, what we're seeing is actually that. What we're seeing is that markets are finally realizing that it's the exporters that are going to take the hit from tariffs, and that will mean slightly lower margins. So it is not creating a disaster in markets, but it's certainly seeing that some sectors, these exporters, are underperforming.
Okay, all right, Daniel, just one last question, and I want to take a step back. Broadly speaking, have other countries been taking advantage of the U.S. in regards to whether it's these products or other products?
Well, the idea of taking advantage seems like it's an unfair situation, and to a certain extent it is. But I think that obviously countries, if they're giving an advantage, they take it. No, but the automotive sector is the clearest one. No, the automotive sector in Europe has massively benefited from an open market in the United States, while automotive companies in the United States find enormous regulatory and trade barriers to sell in Europe. I think that it was President Trump who said that he was shocked to see no GMCs and no Pontiacs in Germany, obviously as a joke. But it is not a joke. Obviously, it is clearly more accessible for automotive companies to sell their products in the United States. And European products are all over the United States, despite the fact that production costs, taxes, labor costs, and energy costs are significantly higher in the European Union. That is a very clear case. Another very clear case, I would say, is the ability to export farming products. Farming products are very easily exported to the United States, yet using regulatory burdens or so-called environmental requirements, etc., farming products are basically suffering quite a bit when they are exported from the United States to the European Union or to other countries.
Well, okay, Daniel, it's always great to speak with you. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Coming up soon, President Donald Trump will hold a bilateral meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House. What they have to say about Trump's peace plan for Gaza. Don't go away.
What if kids in America didn't have to go to bed hungry tonight? What if our moms, dads, and grandparents could put healthy food on the table every day to help us grow strong? What if all of our friends and neighbors had fresh food too, and there was no hunger at all in America? And what if there was a way today for you to help? Call now or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. So many of us don't have enough food to eat, but your monthly gift means families across the country and in your community can fill plates with food. Kids can get healthy meals year-round, even when school's out, and our neighbors can have fresh food. Food that moms, dads, entire families need to thrive. But right now, more people are facing hunger. Feeding America works from coast to coast with partner food banks, food pantries, and meal programs. It takes all of us to make that happen. Will you help too? Please call the number on your screen or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give just $19 a month, and we'll send you this free canvas grocery bag. It's our way of saying thank you for helping to end hunger for our neighbors. Because no kid, no mom or dad, nobody should go hungry in America. Nobody. So what if today was the day you could help nourish futures for our friends, our families, for all of us? Ending hunger is possible. What if we end it together? Call or give online today at helpfeedingamerica.org and your gift can be doubled. Thank you.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjion Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
For decades, I've taught you everything I know. How to safely build a fire, and how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams has dropped his bid for re-election. Now Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani are reacting. Here's Cuomo.
I applaud his selflessness. You know, we often wonder, is it about us or is it about a greater calling? And I think what Mayor Adams said today speaks volumes. He said, I'm going to put my personal ambition aside for the good of the city, because he's afraid of the result if Mr. Mamdani were to win the election. and we should all be afraid of the result.
Well, I think the race continues to be the same as it was, where it's a race between us and the failed politics that we've seen, whether it's Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. It's a politics where Donald Trump and billionaire donors are determining the actions of failed executives. We're going to show that they can't dictate the outcome of this race.
Adams spoke proudly of his tenure as mayor, but he said his now dismissed federal corruption case left voters wary. He also said constant media speculation about his future made it impossible to raise enough money to run a serious campaign. Adams did not endorse any of the remaining candidates, but he warned of insidious forces using local government to advance what he called divisive agendas. Adams' exit could potentially boost Cuomo's campaign. He casts himself as the one candidate who can beat Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani. Missouri's Governor Mike Kehoe has signed a new congressional map into law. It could land Republicans a boost in the House going into next year's midterms. The new map will likely help the GOP flip one Democratic seat and give Republicans a 7-1 advantage in Missouri's delegation. Trump yesterday called the plan fantastic, saying it will help send another MAGA Republican to Congress. Democratic Congressman Emanuel Cleaver criticized the move for using Troost Avenue as a boundary line, a street that he says historically segregated black and white residents. Some residents west of the new dividing line will be shifted into a district held by a Republican representative. Opponents are gathering signatures for a statewide referendum on the new map. They're also pursuing lawsuits to block the map. Kehoe defended the new map, arguing it reflects Missouri's conservative values in Washington. We're turning now to the latest federal deployment from the Trump administration. Federalized National Guard troops have been ordered to Portland, Oregon, following escalating tensions outside federal immigration facilities. Here are the details.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth on Sunday federalized 200 Oregon National Guard troops and ordered them to Portland. President Trump says the troops will protect immigration facilities and respond to threats from Antifa, a group Trump designated as a terrorist organization last week. The deployment drew praise from some local residents who spoke to the Post Millennial.
We've been asking for help for months, and we're finally going to get it.
Federal authorities have also spoken.
Happening now, President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are holding a joint press conference following their meeting at the White House. We're going to listen to that.
Many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations in the Middle East and surrounding Israel and neighbors of Israel has been incredible, incredible. Every single one of them. This afternoon, after extensive consultation with our friends and partners throughout the region, I'm formally releasing our principles for peace, which people have really liked, I must say. And these are done not just routinely done, these are done with total consideration and working with the nations that we're talking about. All of these nations have made contributions to those suggestions. I want to thank the leaders of many Arab and Muslim nations for their tremendous support in developing the proposal, along with many of our allies in Europe. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done? And then they said, have you spoken to the Arab leaders? Have you spoken to the all of the other leaders that we have to get. A lot of people involved in this one. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region. And I want to just say that my meetings and dialogue that we had with so many countries, Saudi Arabia as an example, the king is a phenomenal person. The Emir of Qatar, he's an incredible people. UAE, and that's MBZ and ABZ. We're totally involved. These are the people that we've been dealing with and who've been actually very much involved in this negotiation, giving us ideas, things they can live with, things they can't live with. Pretty complex. I mean, after 2,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is, I guess it's got to be a little complex, or it would have been done a long time ago. The King of Jordan was with us, as you know, in the United Nations. The President of Turkey, President Erdogan, is a friend of mine, a strong man, but a good man. President of Indonesia, somebody who's an amazing leader, Prabowo. He is an amazing leader and respected by everybody. He was in the room with us. We were together with most of these people that I'm mentioning. Others were by phone or the next day. The Prime Minister and the Field Marshal of Pakistan, they were with us right from the beginning. Incredible. In fact, they just put out a statement that they fully believe in this pact. It just came out just as I was walking around. They said, sir, you have a big notice from the Prime Minister of Pakistan and from the Field Marshal that they back this 100%. President El-Sisi of Egypt, who's terrific. And these are people I've gotten to know over the years. I mean, I would say it started around 2015 and then went into 2016 when the presidency officially began. But I've known him actually for a long time, and there are many cases really great men. I can't say in all cases, but I will tell you in many cases they're great men and some great women too. They tend to be mostly men, however, I will say that. But if accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. So the hostages are coming back, and I hate even saying this from the standpoint, doesn't sound right, but it is so important to the parents. The bodies of the young men, I believe in almost all cases, the young men are coming back immediately. I met with parents. The parents felt as strongly about getting the body of their dead boy back as they did as though the boy were alive and well. It's so important to them. And it means the immediate end to the war itself, not just Gaza. It's the war itself. Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed, and in writing in many cases, but I actually would take their word for it. The people I mentioned, I'd take their word for it, to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately. And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas. And I'm hearing that Hamas wants to get this done too, and that's a good thing. And destroy all terror infrastructure, including the tunnels, weapons of production facilities. They have a lot of production facilities that we're destroying. They'll also help train local police forces in the areas that we're discussing right now, in particular in and around Gaza, working with the new transitional authority in Gaza. All parties will agree on a timeline for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. They'll be withdrawing in phases. No more shooting, hopefully. as progress is made toward achieving these goals. Arab and Muslim nations need to be allowed the chance to fulfill these commitments of dealing with Hamas. They have to deal with them because they were the one group that we have not dealt with. I haven't dealt with them. But the Arab countries are going to, and Muslim countries are going to be dealing with Hamas, and I believe they've already been there. I think they probably have an understanding, and they haven't maybe mentioned that, but I would imagine they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone as far as they've gone. If they're unable to do so, then Israel would have the absolute right and actually our full backing, the U.S. full backing. Marco's here, and a lot of our leaders are here, our great Vice President, Susie Wiles, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. They've been so involved in this process. I don't think anybody else could have done it or even come close. But it's we're right there. We're right there. First time in thousands of years, I think you can probably say, if you really look into it, if you study back, if you're a scholar, you would say thousands of years. Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas. But I hope that we're going to have a deal for peace. And if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do. Everyone understands that the ultimate result must be the elimination of any danger posed in the region, and that danger is caused by Hamas. The tyranny of terror has to end, and this is, again, something that we're looking for. This is eternity. This is for forever. To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others. And they'll be named over the next few days. And it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with. Working with the World Bank and others, it will be responsible for recruiting and training a new government that will be made up of Palestinians, along with highly qualified experts from all around the world. Hamas and other terrorist factions will play no role in the board, but they'll play no role in the governance of Gaza at all, directly or indirectly. As you know, thousands of Hamas leaders have been killed and soldiers have been killed. And we can never forget October 7th, but thousands have paid the price for that. And now it's time to get our hostages back and get back to trying to build something that's really great and very important. In our meeting today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about his opposition to a Palestinian state. And he continuously mentions October 7th, and I understand that. Most people do. And I understand and respect his position on many things, but what he's doing today is so good for Israel. I notice that they have large crowds gathering in Israel all the time, and they have my name up. They like me for whatever reason, maybe I don't know, but they do like me. But they say two things: please get the hostages back, and please end the war. They've had it. It's had it. So I think it's a very popular thing you do because he's a warrior. He doesn't know about getting back to a normal way of life, but he is a warrior, and Israel's lucky to have him. But now the people want to get back to peace. They want to get back to normalization in a true sense. Several countries have foolishly recognized the Palestinian state. As you know, some of our European friends, allies, good people, but they're really, I think, doing that because they're very tired of what's going on for so many decades. They've been presidents and prime ministers for years, and during this time, having to do with the Middle East, all they're doing is talking about the same thing over and over. They want to see it get back. And nobody wants that more than me, or I believe Bibi too. But the people of Israel want it. They really want it. They want the hostages back. That includes the probably 32 bodies that we're talking about, 20 people that are living, 32 or so people that are dead, and they want to have peace. So let us not forget how we got here. Hamas was elected by the Palestinian people. Israel withdrew from Gaza thinking they would live in peace. Remember that a long time ago, they withdrew. They said, you take it. This is our contribution to peace. But that didn't work out. That didn't work out. It was the opposite of peace. They pulled away. They let them have it. And I never forgot that because I said, that doesn't sound like a good deal to me. As a real estate person, I mean, they gave up the ocean, right? Ron, they gave up the ocean. They said, who would do this deal? And it still didn't work out. They were very generous, actually. And they gave up the most magnificent piece of land in many ways in the Middle East. And they said, all we want to do now is have peace. And that request was not honored. Instead of building a better life for the Palestinians, Hamas diverted resources to build over 400 miles of tunnels and terror infrastructure, rocket production facilities, and hid their military command posts and launch sites in hospitals, schools, and mosques. So if you went after them, you'd be after them, and you wouldn't even realize you ended up knocking out a hospital or school or a mosque. That terrible thing, terrible, terrible way to have to fight. No fight is good, but that's a real bad one. So there are many Palestinians who wish to live in peace. Many. I've seen so many of them. And they have support. And I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny, because that's what we're giving them. We're giving them responsibility for their destiny, fully condemn and prohibit terrorism and earn their way to a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas. If the Palestinian Authority does not complete the reforms that I laid out in my vision for peace in 2020, they'll have only themselves to blame. We're giving them an amazing footprint, and they have amazing support from the leaders of the Arab world and the Muslim world, the great leaders. These are great leaders. These are unbelievable leaders that have built great countries and very wealthy countries. What the future holds for the Palestinians, no one really knows, but the plan that we put forward today is focused on ending the war immediately, getting all of our hostages back, getting everything back. Hard to believe when you even say it, and creating conditions for durable Israeli security and Palestinian success. Israeli security is going to be involved. We're going to help you. We'll be there with you in terms of helping with security. We want to make sure it works. We just want to make sure it works. There shouldn't be a shot fired. Now, there will be, I guess, because that's the way it seems to be, but there shouldn't have to be within a few days. There shouldn't have to be a shot fired. And maybe for eternity. Wouldn't that be nice? I hope it's true. I can tell you the leadership of that region feels that there's a good chance of it being true. So this will lead to this agreement that we're talking about will lead to a sustainable long-term peace. No president in history has been a greater friend of the state of Israel than I have, in addition to negotiating the Abraham Accords. I like to say it that way because the real people, that's what they call Abraham. I would say Abraham, but it's so much nicer when you say Abraham. So much more elegant. But the Abraham Accords, they're amazing. Jared, you did that along with your group of geniuses, and nobody thought that could be done. We have 4 countries, and Sleepy Joe Biden didn't do a thing. He didn't even know what the hell they were. He should have had them fold up. But I think this will also lead to packing them. And who knows, maybe even Iran can get in there. I hope, we hope we're going to be able to get along with Iran. I think they're going to be open to it. I really believe that. But they could be a member. I long ago said, I'll bet you at some point Iran will be a member of the Accords. And little did I realize it was going to take this turn. That was some turn we did with the B-2s. But I think they might very well be there because it's a great thing for them economically. I recognize the eternal capital of Israel. I opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. That was something that everyone said would never be done, could never be done. Virtually every president for many, many years, for decades, would campaign on making Jerusalem the capital of Israel. They campaigned on it over and over. Is that right, Steve? Is that right? Everyone, and when they got to it, and I understand why now, because it was so. When I got to office, I campaigned on it too. I said, we're going to make it. And then I'd get calls from the leaders of various countries saying, please don't do it. Please don't do it. It'll end the whole world. Please don't do it. And finally, I just didn't say anything, and I did it. People were calling me before I did it because I heard I was going to do it. And leaders of countries were calling me. And I think it was on a Thursday that I did it. And they'd call me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3-4 times a day, and I said, tell them I'll call them back on Friday. And I announced it on Thursday, and I called them back, the biggest people in the world, and they said, you've done it. I said, done what? You've made the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, and we wanted to talk yet. I wish you called me a little sooner. Maybe I could have done something about it. So that was a lot easier than getting into an argument, because I knew what they were calling about. And you know what? It turned out to be amazing. Everybody thought it was going to lead to the end of the world, right? The end of the world, Ron, that's what they said. It didn't lead to anything. It just led to something that I promised, and something that was very, very popular for Jewish people and a lot of other people, too. I recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and I cut taxpayer funding to the corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And United Nations was interesting because, as you know, a few days ago they introduced me. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States. I'm looking at my teleprompter, and the thing was dead, stone cold, dead. The thing's up here. I have a long, beautiful speech to make. I'm back 30 feet back, and I'm saying, they're introducing me. There's nothing on my teleprompter. So, but I made a speech. I actually got good marks. You think Biden could have done that? I don't think so. I don't think he could have done that. I don't think too many people could have done it. But actually, it was actually more of a speech from my heart, if you want to know the truth. I think it was maybe better in certain ways because it was from the heart. It has to be from the heart. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. But I cut taxpayer funding for that very corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and nobody thought that would be done, and withdrew from the horrible Iran nuclear deal that was imposed upon Israel by Barack Hussein Obama and Biden. And I don't think Biden knew anything about it, though. I don't think he knows anything about it now, actually, if you ask him. He'd say, what is that? And we obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity, making it impossible for them to have a nuclear weapon, which they would have had probably in about 2 months from that. But I've never asked Israel to compromise its security, but we had big, strong talk. Nobody's been better to Israel. No president's been better to Israel than Donald Trump. But we had a long, strong talk, Bibi and I, and he understands it's time. It's time. History has shown. And the people of Israel want it. And the people of the Middle East want it. The people of enemies of Israel want it. But they don't have really too many enemies right now. And you know what? Many countries have gained great respect for Israel, for the way they fight, for the job they do, including me. I had respect anyway, but they gained respect. History has shown us that those who have relations with Israel have thrived, while those who have devoted resources and attention toward the destruction and even annihilation of Israel have languished. They haven't done well. Israel is not going anywhere. They're going to coexist with other people and countries in the region, from Syria to Lebanon to Saudi Arabia. The promise of a new Middle East is so clearly within our reach. This is the closest we've ever come to real peace, not fake peace, not political fool's peace. If we can get this difficult problem solved, the opportunities for all within that vast region of this world, it's a vast region, it's unlimited. The Abraham Accords show that all countries are better off when they communicate and work together and embrace new opportunities. I hope Jared and Steve and Susie and Marco and JD, we have great people. I hope you guys are going to work very hard to get these other countries in, because now they have no excuse. There's no longer an excuse. They were somewhere hesitant. And I tell you, the 4 countries that went in, I give them tremendous credit, and it's worked out incredibly well for them. In the same spirit, I'm pleased to report that earlier today, we took another important step toward greater understanding in the region. A short time ago, we had a historic phone call in the Oval Office with Prime Minister Tani, who's really a great person. So we had a great talk, and I was on the phone, and Bibi was talking. Prime Minister Al Thani was of Qatar. They really had a heart-to-heart conversation. It was a great conversation, I thought. It was productive. It was everything that you need to have something turn out to be successful. And I want to thank Bibi, and I want to thank the Prime Minister. It was fantastic. We agreed to launch a formal trilateral mechanism between Israel, Qatar, and the United States to begin a dialogue to enhance mutual security, correct misperceptions, and avoid future misgivings. And I want to thank Qatar, its leadership, and the Emir. He's a fantastic person. I think, I'm going to be his public relations man, because I know him differently than a lot of people know him. But he wants peace. He wants to see peace. And his people, and they really acknowledge the critical role that they've played as mediator. And again, we're not quite finished. We have to get Hamas, but I think they're going to be able to do that. So now it's time for Hamas to accept the terms of the plan that we've put forward today. And again, this is a different Hamas than we were dealing with, because I guess over 20,000 have been killed. Their leadership has been killed 3 times over. So you're really dealing with different people than we've been dealing with over the last 4 years, 5 years. Everyone has done their part and come to the table in good faith. Our Arab and Muslim partners are fully prepared to step up and fulfill their commitments for the benefit of the people of Gaza and the entire region. They're willing to step up and do a lot. They really are. There are a lot of good people involved. Everybody who wants to see an end to the violence and destruction should be united in calling for Hamas to accept the extremely fair proposal so that we can end the war and get us back our hostages right now and have everlasting peace. And I look forward to having relationships with everyone. As the chairman of the board, I'll be involved, and we'll have meetings with some very smart people that'll be working over there to make sure that we haven't just been wasting time with an agreement that doesn't get done. The task of building peace will not be easy. There are some of the hardest problems in the world to solve, and that's why it's been going on for so many centuries. But too many lives are at stake not to try, and this was more than a try. I mean, I think this is something that gets done when you have virtually every country, and these are powerful, powerful countries that have a lot of money, and the money can make things happen. A lot of countries try, and they don't have any money. These are very rich countries that can make things happen. So together we'll forge a much safer and more hopeful future for everybody, including Israel. And I want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for his partnership. And I want to thank all of the leaders, the kings and the emirs and the presidents and prime ministers, people I mentioned, And they've been absolutely fantastic to work with, and it's just happened very quickly. It's happened from a couple of weeks before I had a couple of meetings, but a couple of weeks before we went to the United Nations, and we had some incredible meetings. It all came to place. It all took place, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. I don't have anybody that's saying we don't want anything to do with it. It's just the opposite. And I'll tell you, a couple of years ago, a year ago, I don't think we would have had this kind of participation, Mr. VP, right? I don't think we would have had. It's been amazing. The participation was 100%. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And everybody, those very strong countries, everybody wants it to work. So, Bibi, congratulations on this. I think this will be your crowning achievement, frankly. If this all works out, we think it will. It's going to be your crowning achievement. And I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, first I want to thank you for graciously hosting me once again in the White House. And second, I want to thank you for your friendship and for your leadership. From Jerusalem to Tehran, from the Golan Heights to Gaza, you've proven time and again what I've said many times. You are the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And Mr. President, you and I both know it's not even close. While you focus at home on making America great again, your leadership abroad is changing the world for the better, ending wars and advancing peace. I believe that today we're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East. And I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. We would not have achieved this turning point without the courage and sacrifice of our incredibly brave soldiers. They fight like lions to defend the people of Israel, and they serve on the front line in the war between civilization and barbarism. Mr. President, when our two countries stand shoulder to shoulder, we achieve the impossible. Just a few months ago, in Operation Rising Lion and Operation Midnight Hammer, we struck a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. Your bold decision to send those B-2s made the region safer and the world safer. Now, under your leadership, we're taking the next step to win the war and expand the peace. Your plan is consistent with the 5 principles my government set for the end of the war and the day after Hamas. Everybody asks, what is your plan for the day after Hamas? Here's our plan. Pass it in the cabinet. All our hostages, both those who are alive and those who died, all of them will return home immediately. Hamas will be disarmed. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will retain security responsibility, including a security perimeter for the foreseeable future. And lastly, Gaza will have a peaceful civilian administration that is run neither by Hamas nor by the Palestinian Authority. If Hamas agrees to your plan, Mr. President, the first step will be a modest withdrawal, followed by the release of all our hostages within 72 hours. The next step will be the establishment of an international body charged with fully disarming Hamas and demilitarizing Gaza. I appreciate your willingness to lead the body, Mr. President. I really appreciate it because you have a lot of things to do, and this is important. And it reflects the confidence that this will give everyone, that things will be followed up on all the commitments made. The fact that you're taking this on, I think, helps a lot to make sure that everything flows in the direction that we want. Now, if this international body succeeds, we will have permanently ended the war. Israel will conduct further withdrawals linked to the extent of disarmament and demilitarization, but will remain in the security perimeter for the foreseeable future. I think we should understand that we're giving everybody a chance to have this done peacefully, something that will achieve all our war objectives without any further bloodshed. But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done. All these goals must be achieved because we didn't fight this horrible fight, sacrifice the finest of our young men to have Hamas stay in Gaza and threaten us again and again and again with these horrific massacres. Mr. President, I was encouraged by your clear statement at the UN against the recognition of a Palestinian state. That would be an outcome that, after October 7th, would reward terrorism, undermine security, and endanger Israel's very existence. As for the Palestinian Authority, I appreciate your firm position that the PA could have no role whatsoever in Gaza without undergoing a radical and genuine transformation. In your 2020 peace plan, which you mentioned just now, you made clear what that transformation requires. It's not lip service. It's not checking a box. It's a fundamental, genuine, and enduring transformation. And that means ending pay to slay, changing the poisonous textbooks that teach hatred to Jews, to Palestinian children, stopping incitement in the media, ending lawfare against Israel at the ICC, the ICJ, recognizing the Jewish state, and many, many other reforms. It won't come as a surprise to you that the vast majority of Israelis have no faith that the PA Leopard will change its spots. But rather than wait for this miraculous transformation, your plan provides a practical and realistic path forward for Gaza in the coming years, in which Gaza will be administered neither by Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority, but by those committed to a genuine peace with Israel. I think this can be not only a new beginning for Gaza, I think it can be a new beginning for the entire region. Under your leadership, we can re-energize, well, I've got to contribute my own, we can re-energize the Abraham Accords. That's what it's called in the original Hebrew, Abraham. Abraham is fine, Abraham, however you want to call it. Under your leadership, Mr. President, we can re-energize the Abraham Accords that we forged 5 years ago. We can expand them to many more Arab and Muslim nations that choose moderation over extremism. I think there's an opportunity here. It's not going to be easy, it's tough going, but I think if we succeed, you're absolutely right. We're going to open possibilities that nobody even dreamed of. But I think we dream of them. As you've told me, Mr. President, and you've told the world many, many times, you said, remember October 7th. Remember October 7th. And we do. We will never forget the horrors of October 7th, and we will do whatever is necessary to make sure they don't happen again. Since October 7th, Israel's enemies have learned a hard truth. Those who attack us pay a heavy price, but those who partner with us advance progress and security for their peoples. President Trump just said it. It's also in the Bible. It says, those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who will curse you will be cursed. And that's actually what is happening. We want the blessings. I think we've done a lot in the past 2 years to end the curse. We're not finished, but we've done a lot. And we've done a lot together to end the curse. I want to thank your entire team for their efforts to get to this point. I especially want to thank Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for their indefatigable work to bring Israel and Arab states in the region closer together. I am deeply grateful to both of them for their work. We had a phone call today just to make it clear. I said to the Prime Minister of Qatar, Israel was targeting terrorists, wasn't targeting Qatar. And of course, we regretted the loss of the Qatari citizen, wasn't our target. And I very much appreciate President Trump's proposal to have a trilateral body, the United States, Israel, and Qatar, to work out respective grievances. There are quite a few. But if we could try to mitigate them or put it on a different footing, I think that'll be good for everyone. Above all the people, the fine team, many helpers who've done this, I want to thank you, Mr. President. History has already shown that under your leadership, Israel and America can change the face of the Middle East. And today I'm hopeful that your plan to end the war in Gaza will do so again and do so soon. It will free our hostages, end Hamas's tyranny in Gaza, and enable a more secure and prosperous future for the peoples of our region. Thank you, Mr. President. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless the indispensable alliance between our countries. And may I add in Hebrew, G'mal Chatima Tova, may we all be inscribed in the book of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bibi. So I think while we wait for these documents to be signed and get everybody in line, I think it maybe is not really appropriate to take questions. I'm meeting with, as you know, a couple of Democrats in a little while about the country, about keeping our country open. They're going to have to do some things because their ideas are not very good ones. They're very bad for our country. So we'll see how that works out. But this is something that was really historic today. This was something that was amazing. I think, Bibi, I mean, depending on you, I think while we're waiting for signatures and waiting for approvals from a lot of different countries that are involved in this, we probably shouldn't take questions? Or would you like to take a question or two from perhaps a friendly Israeli reporter, if there's such a thing?
That's a very, very tough proposition. But I would think, Mr. President, that I would go by your instinct that this is, we'll have enough time for questions. Let's settle the issue first, I think. No.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
And that was President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House unveiling a plan, a peace plan for Gaza and Hamas. Joining us now to discuss this is David Wormser, senior analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former senior advisor to U.S. Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and Strategic Affairs. Okay, good afternoon, David. Thank you so much for waiting for this press conference to conclude. So can we start, there's a lot to talk about here, but one specific thing that is very interesting. What do you make of this governance proposal? Having a political party to oversee a transitional government, if you will, and this board that is going to be chaired by President Donald Trump, and that is if Hamas accepts this deal, right? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. The Israelis obviously don't want the Palestinian Authority because this whole crisis began when the Palestinian Authority assumed control of Gaza. And they radicalized the population, then lost control to Hamas. So obviously the Israelis don't want the Palestinian Authority. So it's very interesting that they're bringing in this international body. But again, it shows that Israel really only trusts the United States. And specifically, they really only trust President Trump to be pro-Israeli, or at least to have Israel's concerns at heart, or take them seriously. And as a result, while the Israelis are skeptical of an international body, skeptical that an international body will be aggressive enough to clean out the remnants of Hamas and really go through every tunnel, every hole, every room to root out the weaponry that Hamas is stowed away, they only trust the United States. And that's why I think you see the construction of this in the shape that it is and the demand by Israel that President Trump personally lead it.
You know, I get the sense from President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu that they're very confident, or at least to a certain degree, that is unseen from previous peace efforts. Can you talk to us about what is different this time?
Well, I think what they are confident about is, I think President Trump and Israel are a little different on the issue of Qatar per se. But overall, I think the Israelis and America together are very confident. This sort of clears out this nightmare of the last 2 years. If you go back 2 years, Israel and Saudi Arabia were on the verge of a peace treaty. And I think this clears out all this nightmare and underbrush and misery and debris that was left that blocked Israel from moving ahead with normalizing relations with critical Arab states like Saudi Arabia, perhaps others. And so I think there's this confidence that this unlocks things. It's not directly going to lead to it, but this was in the way. And this had to get out of the way in order to move ahead like that. There is some difference over Qatar. The Israelis see Qatar as one of the instigators of 9/11, the Muslim Brotherhood being an ideology supported by Qatar that animated Hamas as well as other regional actors that are dangerous. So the Israelis have a more dim view, but at the same time now they are in direct meetings and direct talks with the Qataris under the auspices of the United States. So even there's sort of a calming mechanism that's been set up.
And I think, David, the million-dollar question here is why should Hamas accept this deal, including demilitarizing?
Well, I think Hamas has to accept the deal for two reasons. First of all, as I think the Prime Minister said, they can do it the easy way or the hard way. The Israeli military is coming. It will disarm them and destroy them. And they can do that either by giving up now, and they can do it peacefully, take the, some of the clauses are safe passage, amnesty, they can go abroad. They can do that, or they can be destroyed. And so that's one incentive. The second incentive is Hamas and Qatar really are linked. Qatar is not really a neutral observer. They are really the mentor of Hamas. And if this is in Qatar's interest, and it is, then they can lean on Hamas to give up the hostages and go for a resolution. Hamas really can't buck Qatar's demand. And Qatar was shocked by the Israeli state. Israel apologized for the strike just now, but on Hamas and Qatar. But it shocked Qatar that they were vulnerable to Israeli power. And I think that scared the Qataris enough to say, okay, this is too dangerous. Hamas, you're beginning to get us in trouble and us endangered. So I think between Hamas's incentives to go to peace and Hamas's own to survive personally, you may get a deal, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not as confident as the president is. And even if they agree, they can play games. Some of the bodies may not be the Israelis. They may be somebody else's body. They have played these games before. They're somewhat cruel and sadistic on top of it all. So they could return empty caskets or bodies of people who aren't Israelis. So this has quite a ways to go, and I'm still not 100% sure. In fact, I'm on the 50-50 mark whether even Hamas will accept this.
So if you're saying that Hamas will play tricks even if it accepts the deal, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself here, wouldn't the better option be to then just to eliminate Hamas?
Well, a lot of Israelis are saying that. The president was right. Israelis are tired of this war. Israelis have been mobilized. You know, they have a citizen army. So 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, people who have jobs, families, children, they've been mobilized for 400 or 500 days already, and they're tired. They want peace. It's true. They also want their hostages back, but they also want victory. And a lot of Israelis are somewhat upset or sad or very anxious that this isn't quite the clean victory. All the terms that Prime Minister Netanyahu laid out for the war are on paper now met, but they are not yet actualized in some cases, and certainly not with the hostages yet. We'll see in a few days. So I don't know if the Israelis are as euphoric or as relieved about this as people think they may be. They're very anxious. And you're right, many Israelis are saying, wouldn't it have been better just to go all the way and finish it and do it themselves? And the IDF is responsible for disarming Gaza, and then you can set up some sort of a new government. But first, the IDF has to finish the job. So there are a lot of Israelis who say that, and you're going to see a lot of Israelis complain about this deal in the coming days because of that.
So you said earlier that one reason why Hamas might accept this deal is either accept it or be destroyed, right? So how close is Israel to actually, completely eliminating Hamas?
Well, when entities or nations fall, it's very difficult to predict the pace because as they start losing, they start crumbling, and then things can happen very quickly. But if it's linear, namely if Israel just keeps grinding away, we're looking between 1 and 2 months before Gaza, really 1 or 2 weeks before Gaza City falls, and 1 or 2 months, maybe Thanksgiving, before all of Gaza would have fell. So there really is, it really is close to Israel finishing the job otherwise as well. This is not something that if it started again, Israel would have to take another 3 years, 2 years, whatever. Now, this can change the calculus if Israel withdraws and war has to restart. That is more difficult because the Israelis then once again have to retake territory, and that will take time. But I think Israel right now, had the war gone on, was within a month or two of complete victory.
Okay, what are your thoughts on more Western countries recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN Assembly last week? And what do you think the impact of that might be?
Well, I think it made coming to this deal much harder. I think it encouraged Hamas and some Arab states to hold out more. I think it was a dead letter, and it's left Israelis bitter, and that made them much less willing to compromise as well. And it also raised expectations in the long run that could be dangerous, namely the expectation that this momentum towards statehood is an inexorable movement that won't be reversed, leads many of these nations not to really come to peace with Israel, thinking that, it'll be imposed on Israel anyway. So it's a very dangerous, even now and going forward, it can still derail this whole thing simply because of the expectation that the international community will continue to come down on Israel. And that undermines their willingness to come to peace with Israel.
Would you say because of more countries coming out and taking this position, does that indicate that support for Israel's campaign is potentially peaking here?
Well, clearly there's been some erosion of support for Israel, and it's inevitable given the images. I mean, any human being looks at what's going on in Gaza, and it's sad. I mean, I'm very pro-Israeli, but when I see these little children and there's, it's sad. The war is awful, and there's no way around it, and the images really don't sell Israel right now. But that said, I think you have to look at who recognized Palestine. It was governments that are highly unpopular with their people. the Spanish government, the French government, the British government, the Australian government, they're in an electoral collapse. So they're not acting. And by the way, the polls in those countries show that even in these countries that are not very sympathetic to Israel, they still felt that it wasn't wise to unconditionally recognize, quote, Palestine that way. So I think that one has to differentiate between populations and the elites who are being rejected by their people.
All right, just one final question, David. If Hamas accepts whether it's this deal or some kind of other form of a deal at this stage, would you say that essentially means the end of the war completely?
No, unfortunately, I think Hamas can accept the deal, perhaps. Again, I put it really a little bit less odds than the president. But I think in their mind, this is a temporary ceasefire, and that they're going to start from day one rebuilding the option of going back to war. And moreover, the Palestinian Authority is also constantly training and preparing for an October 7th like attack. I don't see really, unless Hamas is really, Israel maintains security control, or this international body really aggressively maintains security control, Hamas will come back at it. Hamas will never give up. It is not in their ideology to. It would not survive if it tried, if it tried to give up. And in many ways, I think that's unfortunately true even of the Palestinian Authority.
Okay, David, thank you for your valuable insight today. It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you.
The Trump administration is seeking to reverse the decline of the use of coal plants. Previous administrations worked to phase out coal as an energy source. Secretary of Interior Doug Burgum says coal use is still growing globally, especially in China.
We're in a competition, and that competition for the AI arms race, as we call it, is with China. China, absolutely the number one user of coal, and they are aggressively adding more power. Our nation can lead in technology, but if we don't lead in electrical production, we're going to lose the AI arms race. This is an interesting time in history because this is the first time in the history of the planet where a kilowatt of electricity can be converted directly into intelligence.
Burgum added that many coal mines also hold critical minerals, which the U.S. is currently buying from China. So the secretary suggests expanding coal use would also help the U.S. be less reliant on its adversaries. The Department of the Interior will now open over 13 million acres of federal land for coal leasing. And Energy Secretary Chris Wright also talked about the issue this morning. He says the administration is setting to invest $625 million to expand the coal industry. Coal burning plants generated about 15% of electricity in the U.S. in 2024. That's a fall from 50% in 2000. Fracking and other drilling methods have hiked natural gas output. Solar and wind power growth have also cut coal use. And the coal workforce was almost cut in half in the last 10 years, down from 70,000 down to 40,000. The Trump administration has announced a $625 million investment aimed at increasing coal use in the U.S. Joining us now to discuss is David Blackman, energy policy analyst and advisor. He's also a senior contributor at Forbes. So David, always great to see you. Thank you for joining us today. And I wanted to talk to you about this. Yeah, good afternoon to you, David. So this investment, includes $350 million to modernize coal plants. Can you talk to us from a technical perspective? How effective could these coal plant modernization efforts be?
Well, the modernization efforts are designed to add more scrubbing technology to cut emissions from the coal plants. It's one of the big objectives that's going on now at the Department of Energy, that's part of this, is to prevent the premature closure of some of the coal plants that are scheduled to be retired over the next 5 to 10 years, based on the rising demand from AI data centers, crypto mining, and other heavy uses of electricity. We're going to need to keep those power plants online for longer, and some of them are older plants that don't have the most modern scrubber technology. So that's a big piece of this, is controlling the real pollution, cutting back on particulate emissions that come out of coal plants. So it's a good investment. You're asking power generators to keep older plants online that they have scheduled for retirement. So there's a lot of cost incurred in doing that and making sure those plants can continue to comply with the emissions regulations that are in place at the EPA.
But, David, some reports apparently are saying that forcing coal plants to remain operational could actually increase costs for consumers due to their higher cost of operating aging coal plants. What is your response to that?
Well, that's part of what this is the federal government recognizing that possibility and allocating some funds that have been saved from other proposed usage here over the past 8 months to help alleviate that very issue. There a lot of those studies on the relative cost of various different generation sources are pretty questionable, and it's hard to know what's accurate and what isn't accurate. But the reality is AI data centers have to have 24/7 generation. They have to be online 99.999% of the time. And you have to have real base load generation provided by natural gas, coal, and nuclear to achieve that. You can't achieve that with intermittent energy sources. And so we're going to need all the base load we can get here in the next 5 to 10 years to ensure that we continue to have reliability on our power grids and meet the needs of all this new technology that's coming online.
Is there actual demand for coal in the U.S. economy? Is there enough?
Well, there's demand for coal and power generation. So we're not building new coal plants right now. I suspect we're probably going to have to begin permitting the building of newer coal plants here in the coming years, just because there are some parts of the country where you're not going to be able to build nuclear and natural gas to meet the demand center needs. Not many, but some. And so I think there's probably going to be a need to expand the coal fleet in the coming years. And this is part of what's leading up to that. But there's also a huge international market for coal produced in the United States. We produce coal in the United States more responsibly, more cleanly, with fewer emissions than anywhere else on Earth. We also have the largest reserves of coal than any other country on Earth. So it makes all kinds of sense to, free up these countries to produce the coal and export it to other countries for their use. They're going to get it from somewhere. It would be better to get it in the cleanest and most responsibly produced fashion they can get it. And it also, helps boost the economy in these states where the coal is, like Wyoming and Montana, West Virginia, even Alabama, as far south as Alabama. So, there's all these trade-offs in the energy space, and this administration is there because the voters put them there, and this is what the president campaigned on during his campaign.
Okay, speaking of trade-offs, can you talk to us about the input cost here? What is that like comparing coal-produced electricity versus other types of production of electricity?
Well, right now, coal is cheaper than any other source, any other generation source that we have available to us. It has been the cheapest energy source for a long time, and that's to a large extent due to the fact that it is so abundant and easy to acquire. And natural gas is probably pretty close to as inexpensive as coal right now, but coal's the cheapest that there is. So people have very creative ways to do the analysis on these things. Where wind and solar is concerned, they don't take into account the full life cycle and supply chain cycle of wind and solar when they do these estimates that claim that wind and solar are so cheap. Well, if wind and solar are so cheap, why have our utility rates increased by 40% over the last 5 years as we've gone through this enormous boom in putting wind and solar onto our power grids? The fact is, wind and solar aren't cheap. Coal is cheap. It's there. These plants already exist. And we're going to need them for the future if, as Secretary Burgum said, we're going to be able to lead the world in AI technology, which I think is really the current arms race we're involved in with the rest of the world. And so it's vitally important that we have this generation capacity there to, help ensure that we can expand this industry here in the United States faster than anywhere else.
Okay, so if coal is cheaper than compared to a renewable energy, does that mean if we use more coal here in the United States that electricity prices will likely fall because of that?
All other things being equal, yeah, that's probably true. I mean, building a coal plant is more expensive than building a natural gas plant. It's a lot more heavily regulated in terms of the emissions. But once you get a coal plant online, its operation costs are pretty significantly less than most other generation sources. So but we have discouraged that in the United States over concerns about emissions in more recent years, mainly due to carbon emissions rather than real pollutants. The scrubber technology, that's the most modern technology, takes 95 to 98% of all particulate matter generated from a coal plant out of the atmosphere. And so, they don't really generate a lot of real pollution. They do generate substantial amount of carbon emissions, and that's what EPA has been most focused on in recent years. But it's a lot cleaner than it ever has been before. And when you consider the demand needs that are on the horizon and the very near horizon, we're going to need to keep these coal plants running for some time.
Okay, David, just one last question, and you mentioned AI, right? What is the gap like between electricity demand and supply in the U.S. right now? And can using more coal fill that gap?
Sure, yes. So, I mean, we have adequate electricity most days. It just depends on, to a large extent, on what the weather becomes. Here in Texas, where I live, we had this awful winter storm in 2021 that shut down a big portion of our generating capacity here in the state, and we had blackouts. California, on the other hand, has a very narrow margin in terms of the generation that they need and what they have in terms of supply, and so there are frequent brownouts and blackouts in the California grid that don't occur in most other states. But by and large, we have adequate capacity until you have a major weather event. And one of the big problems with renewables is when you do have a major weather event, they're the first sources of generation that fall off the grid. So it's just we don't have the reserve capacity of dispatchable generation, natural gas, coal, and nuclear, that we really need on some of our regional power grids to maintain reliability when the weather isn't good. And so you have to plan for those kinds of events and be sure you have the adequate capacity to get through them. And that is a big piece of what Secretary Burgum and Secretary Chris Wright at DOE are concerned about.
Well, okay, David, always great to enjoy your analysis. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we come back, it's been nearly 3 weeks since the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, and Americans are still mourning his death and honoring his legacy. What is the Charlie Kirk effect? New York City Mayor Eric Adams has dropped out of the NYC race for mayor. Find out what other candidates have to say after this break.
This land, our America, built on hard work, determination, and grit. Sometimes the days run long, but hope, it never runs out, even when the food does, for America's veterans, working parents, even kids. Because in every corner of every town, even yours, millions of hard-working neighbors are facing a hunger crisis, many for the very first time. In this land of plenty, affording food shouldn't require second jobs and third shifts or choosing between your groceries and bills. Today, you can help change that. Call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, less than 63 cents a day, to help every neighbor get the food they urgently need. Because taking care of each other is what makes America strong. We're Feeding America. Not just a name, but an action. working with over 200 local food banks like the ones in your community, and demand is soaring.
You go to the grocery store, you spend $100, and $100 is a new $20 bill.
Even with 2 full-time jobs, it's hard to make ends meet.
These are tough times, but when we stand together, we become the very best of a strong America. Please call or go online to helpfeedingamerica.org. Just $19 a month can feed a family today. And your first gift can double an impact. Plus, we'll send you this free canvas bag as a reminder of the hope you're delivering.
When it comes down to it, it's about taking care of your family first and the loved ones that you need to provide for.
Because you're not just giving food, you're fueling resilience for people across the nation. You're feeding America. Call or go online today to helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double an impact.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Today, state and law enforcement officials shared updates on the case and the conditions of victims.
In the past 24 hours, our investigative squads and specialty teams have been out all night, exhausting leads, some of which have been coming in from the public via tips. Our special agents, victim specialists, child advocate forensic interviewers, and local partners have interviewed over 100 victims and witnesses to date and are continuing to interview individuals as we speak.
Investigators say a 40-year-old man set fire to the church and then opened fire yesterday morning. Grand Blanc Township Police Chief William Renee shared today that the suspect had been arrested in the past for burglary and operating while intoxicated. The chief also explained that the church is still being processed, but everyone has been accounted for. Renee also confirmed 5 deaths, including the suspect. He said 8 people were hurt. The hospital chief of staff at Henry Ford Genesis said the patients range from 6 to 78 years old. Dr. Michael Danick said one person who was shot multiple times is still in critical condition. He said 3 victims suffered smoke inhalation.
We had a number of our residents who were members of the church and were on site. Not only were they victims, they were also first responders. And having your friends and family come in injured and taking care of them is a really incredible experience. They were heroes. Those on the scene were absolute heroes, going in and out of the fire to drag people out, helping each other take care of the victims on the scene.
The church has been declared a total loss from the fire. The incident is being investigated as an act of targeted violence. 3 defense attorneys appointed by a Utah judge on behalf of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, appeared in their first court hearing today. Utah defense attorney Catherine Nestor has been appointed as Robinson's lead attorney. Nestor has been lead or co-counsel on 9 aggravated murder cases across the country. She was joined today by 2 other public defenders who will assist with Robinson's defense. Nestor asked for a 30-day delay of a preliminary hearing in which the judge would determine if there is enough evidence to move forward with charges. She said she was not waiving her client's right to have the hearing, but she needed more time to review the evidence and gather more in the case so far. The judge scheduled the next hearing for October 30th. It's been nearly 3 weeks since the assassination of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, and Americans are still mourning his death and honoring his legacy. Over the weekend, thousands of Penn State fans paid tribute to Kirk by wearing his now iconic Freedom t-shirt on Saturday night's game. Against Oregon, Kirk's favorite college football team, church attendance is also reportedly continuing to rise after Kirk's murder, especially among young Americans. Pastors and other Christian faith leaders are dubbing the faith revival the Charlie Kirk effect. Joining us now to discuss is Shabbos Kestenbaum, PragerU personality, writer, and commentator. So first of all, good afternoon to you, Shabbos. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours here today. And I really wanted to ask you, by starting off here, what does the Charlie Kirk effect look like from where you're at, from your vantage point?
Sure. So Charlie Kirk was not just a political figure, but in many cases, he was also a religious figure, particularly to Gen Z Americans, many of whom had gone off and away from religious institutions. He is someone who encouraged you, whether you were a Christian or a Jew, to explore and re-identify with your religious institution and belief, which is why you are seeing, since his horrific assassination, a 15% increase in church attendance. We've seen in the Jewish community as well. Synagogues are reporting an increase in synagogue attendance, and that is because Charlie recognized that the foundation, the bedrock of Western civilization, are Judeo-Christian values. And Gen Z really for years have been written off as secular, as atheistic, and Charlie has demonstrated that that is not true, that there is a profound search for meaning. Young Americans are looking for spirituality, they're looking for answers, and yes, they're looking for meaning in their lives, and that's why you are seeing not only historic synagogue and church attendance, but a greater cultivation around those Judeo-Christian values that make us who we are as Americans.
And what would you say it means for America, if more and more people are coming closer to faith?
Oh, I think that'd be excellent. I'm obviously an Orthodox Jew. I wear my yarmulke quite proudly, but I think America would be a much better country if more Christians went to church. I think America would be a much better country if more Christians learned both the Old Testament and the New Testament and took seriously the commands by Jesus and by later disciples. We are a country that, as I said, was founded on Judeo-Christian values. We are a nation that really identifies with a religious ethos. And unfortunately, we've sort of backed away from that in the last few decades. We have tried notions of secularism, of materialism, and it really does not answer the questions that Americans are seeking. Everyone looks for meaning in their lives, and I think religion can not only provide that meaning, but it also makes stronger communities, it builds stronger families, and we will be a more prosperous, a more peaceful, and a more loving nation if Americans re-identified with their religious faith. So you heard it from me first as a religious Jew. Way more Christians should be going to church.
And Shabbos, I've seen this pattern over the years. Why is it, do you think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, that, more people turn to faith in times of hardship?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate perception. It's because in times of hardship, especially after Charlie Kirk's assassination, for example, we see that the world is not ordered. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of anarchy. And the structures that we sort of live our lives in accordance with aren't always in place. We often are taught that if you do the right thing, if you pay your taxes, if you follow the law, if you're a good, honorable person, then you will be able to flourish and thrive, certainly in a Western society. But unfortunately, a consequence of living in a democracy is you have a lot of bad faith, nefarious actors like this shooter, the assassin of Charlie Kirk. And in a time when in a time when structures don't seem to be strong and stable, you want things that are in fact strong and stable. And a 3,000-year-old religious tradition, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, that provides timeless wisdom, really connects with people of all ages, of all political backgrounds, and of all stripes. So I would encourage all Americans and really around the world, look into your religious identity, because I think so many of the questions and so many of the things we're looking for have answers to, and that's rooted in the Bible. It's written in the words of our prophets, of our ancestors who came thousands of years before. And I think if we truly wanted to honor Charlie Kirk's memory, then we would go and to our local services, and we would be the best versions of ourselves and establish a relationship with God.
And, obviously, the assassination of Charlie Kirk was this catalyst, if you will, of increased faith activity. If you could just point to one thing, what is the most significant aspect, in your opinion, for motivating young people now to become so engaged and energized?
I think part of it is because young people were not really expected to be part of a religious institution. I mean, social scientists for decades had been warning what's called the rise of the nones, Americans who don't identify with any particular religious tradition or faith-based organization. And Gen Z was really just meant to be a culmination of that growing trend. And now we're bucking that trend. We're actually saying, no, that's not true. We want to be more involved. I mean, especially with Gen Z men, we're seeing a rise in baptisms. We're seeing a rise in Catholics receiving communion. And again, these are great, great things. Charlie Kirk was not just a political figure. He was not someone who gave answers on tariffs or economic policy or healthcare, but in many senses, he was sort of a spiritual figure for so many young people. They would ask him on these college campuses, for example, what are the types of people I should be looking for in a relationship? What's the type of church I should be praying at? They would pray together. They would ask for blessings. That is not just a political figure, but that is also someone who had a lot of spiritual meaning in so many people's lives. And in that hole, now that Charlie is gone, young people are trying to fill it. And they're trying to fill it with what Charlie had been saying for so many years, which is religion.
And you know, Shabos, we had a historian on the show previously, and I was asking this person about the number of people, paying respect to Charlie Kirk. And she said, this is sort of really unprecedented in recent times. Why is that? I think, part of it is that what Charlie Kirk stood for goes beyond politics. But can you talk to us about this? I mean, he's been honored at major football events as well, I mentioned earlier. Why do you think this is?
I think that's an entirely accurate characterization. On his worst day, Charlie at his most evil was Charlie expressing ideas he didn't like, stating things that made you uncomfortable or disagreeable. That was his most punishable offense. And free speech is obviously a cornerstone of American democracy and Western civilization, broadly speaking. So when you have someone who is so brutally attacked, someone who loses their life for doing something that every American holds dear, as you pointed out, it's not just an attack on Charlie Kirk, it's an attack on all of us. And we saw that yesterday with what you were reporting on with the horrific terrorist attack in the Michigan Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's not an attack merely on Mormons or those who subscribe to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's an attack on all Americans, Jews, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, because we recognize religion, freedom of speech. That is what it means to be an American. So when we see this outpour of love and grief for Charlie, on the one hand, it's touching and it's great, and we should build on that. But on the other hand, it's not surprising because he was doing what every American should be doing, where you have strong moral convictions, political convictions, religious convictions, and then you advocate for those convictions. As I said, the worst thing he possibly did was not cheat on his taxes, was not violate the law, was not encourage violence, was to exercise his First Amendment rights. And we as young people especially can so identify with that because we're a politically charged generation. We have lots of different ideas. We are in the public marketplace of ideas. And when someone is a martyr for free speech, then we can identify with that and we can say that, yeah, I'm also Charlie. I see myself in what Charlie was doing.
And of course, this is not happening in a vacuum, right? There is politics involved. And with the 2026 midterms coming up, if I may, I'd like to ask you a question on that. Do you see this energy among young people? Do you see that carrying into the midterms next year? And what do you think the impact of that will be?
Oh, absolutely. And you don't have to take my word for it. At Charlie Kirk's vigil last Sunday, where tens of thousands of Americans, along with, of course, President Trump and essentially the entire cabinet of the White House were in attendance in Arizona, you also had thousands of young people in that stadium who were registering to vote for the very first time. Turning Point USA, God bless them, were there with clipboards and pens encouraging people to register to vote. So I do see you're going to see a surge in voter registration, number one. And then politically, because unfortunately this is a politicized issue, this will very much go into the hands of Republicans who are saying, look, we are seeing an historic rise in left-wing violence. This shooter, who I won't mention his name, he was very anti-immigration customs enforcement. He was very immersed in pro-transgender ideology. And we are seeing that attack is not in a vacuum. We're seeing a lot of copycat attacks. We're seeing a lot of people with those far left ideologies as well. So I think that's going to play in the hands a positive way for the Republicans. I would also say that the opposite effect is also true. The far left is getting farther left. The best example of that is Zohran Mamdani, the self-proclaimed socialist who all polling data suggests will be the next mayor of New York City. And I think Donald Trump even tweeted about this a few days ago, saying that this will be a gift to the Republicans in 2026 and in 2028, because you may be uncomfortable with certain conservative policy positions. You may not like Donald Trump's tweets, but at the end of the day, the largest city in America has just voted for an actual socialist. And he is going to tie every single Democratic member of Congress, member of the Senate, to Zohran Mamdani, saying, do you avow, do you condemn his policies and what he stands for? So I actually think, as opposed to a blue wave that is always predicted during the midterms, I think it more likely than not, you're going to see Republicans dominate, not just with their typical rural constituency, but with a lot of young people, especially in urban environments like New York City as well.
Okay, Shapos, I really enjoyed our conversation today. I would just ask one more question. How will Turning Point USA look like now with Erica Kirk as CEO?
You know, Erica is simply incredible. What she has put up with really for her entire career, but especially in the last 3 weeks when you have nefarious actors who are trying to pin or claim Charlie for things that he didn't believe in or didn't say, yet she has the resolve. She has the ability to be so outspoken and dignified. So number one, all credit goes to Erica. I think she gave one of the best speeches in American political history, at least of the 21st century, when she says, quote, "That man, that young man, I forgive him," referring, of course, to Charlie's assassin. I mean, that will go down as one of the greatest speeches ever given in American political history. In terms of the future of Turning Point USA, they've already announced that they are going on more campuses. They have had a surge of applications, not just to start TPUSA chapters on college campuses, but also high schools. They're working with pastors from across the country to bring conservative values and Judeo-Christian values into the church and into the synagogues. So, as so many people say, and I'll echo it, they can kill a man, but they can't kill a movement. Charlie Kirk was not just a man. He leaves behind a tremendous legacy and a tremendous movement. Turning Point USA will only grow. We have seen all the data supports this idea that more people, especially young people, as I keep saying, are invested in conservative principles, and they want to open Turning Point USA chapters in their communities. I have no concern over the direction of TPUSA, and really, they are on chart for explosive growth in the months and years ahead.
Okay, Shapos Kestenbaum, PragerU personality, writer, and commentator, thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams has dropped his bid for re-election. Now Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani are reacting. Here's Cuomo.
I applaud his selflessness. You know, we often wonder, is it about us or is it about a greater calling? And I think what Mayor Adams said today speaks volumes. He said, I'm going to put my personal ambition aside for the good of the city, because he's afraid of the result if Mr. Mamdani were to win the election. And we should all be afraid of the result.
Well, I think the race continues to be the same as it was, where it's a race between us and the failed politics that we've seen, whether it's Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. It's a politics where Donald Trump and billionaire donors are determining the actions of failed executives. We're going to show that they can't dictate the outcome of this race.
Adams spoke proudly of his tenure as mayor, but he said his now dismissed federal corruption case left voters wary. He also said constant media speculation about his future made it impossible to raise enough money to run a serious campaign. Adams did not endorse any of the remaining candidates, but he warned of insidious forces using local government to advance what he called divisive agendas. Adams' exit could potentially boost Cuomo's campaign. He casts himself as the one candidate who can beat Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani. Missouri's Governor Mike Kehoe has signed a new congressional map into law. It could land Republicans a boost in the House going into next year's midterms. The new map will likely help the GOP flip one Democratic seat and give Republicans a 7-1 advantage in Missouri's delegation. Trump yesterday called the plan fantastic, saying it will help send another MAGA Republican to Congress. Democratic Congressman Emanuel Cleaver criticized the move for using Troost Avenue as a boundary line, a street that he says historically segregated black and white residents. Some residents west of the new dividing line will be shifted into a district held by a Republican representative. Opponents are gathering signatures for a statewide referendum on the new map. They're also pursuing lawsuits to block the map. Kehoe defended the new map, arguing it reflects Missouri's conservative values in Washington. When we come back, the U.S. might supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which could easily reach Moscow. How Russia is now responding. We have those stories and more when we come back.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick. On and off the field, we were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was a whole range of emotions. There's stuff I still want to do. Being a young dad, it's not giving up, it's shifting. Just seeing him happy, I looked through his eyes, I can envision a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time, I'm happy because he's advancing in life. My life is now devoted to his life.
Russia is responding to the U.S. possibly supplying Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. They could strike deep inside Russia, easily reaching Moscow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has more.
The United States is considering sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance told Fox News on Sunday, "We're certainly looking at a number of requests from the Europeans." The Tomahawk missiles have a reach of over 1,500 miles, easily far enough to hit Moscow if fired from Ukraine. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg commented on the issue while speaking with Fox.
Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. President Zelensky asked President Trump to get Tomahawk missiles, which give you a depth. They're really good systems. America makes the best systems in the world.
Russia responded on Monday, saying the Kremlin is monitoring and assessing the situation.
The question is, who can launch these missiles? Even if they are located on the territory controlled by the Kiev regime, can they be launched solely by Ukrainians, or must they be operated by American military personnel?
The spokesman added that it's also important to know who will set and choose the targets for the missiles, if it will be Ukrainian or American soldiers. Russian President Vladimir Putin previously said that Western countries will make themselves direct parties to the conflict if they supply targeting and intelligence to fire deep inside Russia. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Ensuring children are guided in school with morals based in tradition. That's the focus of a hearing today by the Justice Department's Religious Liberty Commission. We have that story and more when we come back after this break.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Dave's Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Dave's enzyme fermented coffee.
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in yourself, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My dad was a farmer, and when I saw him on a horse, the guy was bigger than life. One of the things that he had a hard time doing was showing the emotion. Maybe it was because the way he was raised, or believing that men provide and they don't struggle. But we all struggle. I want to show emotion to my kids. I want them to know when I'm happy, I want them to know when I'm sad, and I want them to see me working through things. The biggest reward I get from being a dad is watching my kids accomplish a goal, watching them light up. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face. So I make my kids a priority. Whether it's hitting a baseball, a dance rehearsal, you name it, I'm there. They're gonna remember that they grew up loved. Be brave. Be there every day. And allow your kids to know that it's okay to struggle. That even dad doesn't know the answer sometimes, but we're gonna figure it out together.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announcing their Gaza peace plan, and the president announcing a tariff on foreign-made films. President Trump has agreed to meet with the top 4 congressional leaders today, but Democrats maintain that they will force a government shutdown if they do not get their maximalist demands. Ensuring children are guided in school with morals based in tradition, that's the focus of a hearing today by the Justice Department's Religious Liberty Commission. The U.S. might supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which could easily reach Moscow. How Russia is responding.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon. Thank you for staying with us. President Trump unveiling his 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visits the White House. We now go live to NTD's Mari Otsu at the White House. Mari, good afternoon. What is the latest on the president's meeting with Israel's prime minister?
Don, good afternoon. Just minutes ago, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu left the White House here in his motorcade after a joint presser in which he and President Trump laid out a 20-point plan for peace in Gaza. So if both sides agree to the president's plan, the war will immediately end. The plan states that within 72 hours of Israel accepting it, all hostages, both alive and dead, will be released. Israeli forces will then withdraw to the yellow line that you see on the map here to prepare for that hostage release, and Gaza will then be governed by a temporary transitional governance overseen and supervised by a so-called Board of Peace, which the president said will be headed by himself. Here's President Trump expressing his hope for Palestine after the war comes to an end. Watch.
And I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny, because that's what we're giving them. We're giving them responsibility for their destiny, fully condemn and prohibit terrorism and earn their way to a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas. If the Palestinian Authority does not complete the reforms that I laid out in my vision for peace in 2020, they'll have only themselves to blame. We're giving them an amazing footprint, and they have amazing support from the leaders of the Arab world and the Muslim world, the great leaders. These are great leaders.
Laid out in the plan that once all the hostages are released, Israel will then release 250 life sentence prisoners and 1,700 Gazans who were detained after the October 7 attacks. And Hamas members who commit to a peaceful coexistence and to put down their weapons will be granted amnesty. And so far, President Trump says that everyone has accepted this deal except for Hamas. This is coming just after President Trump today hosted a trilateral phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's here at the White House, of course, and Prime Minister Al Thani of Qatar. Take a look.
We had a historic phone call in the Oval Office with Prime Minister Thani. We agreed to launch a formal trilateral mechanism between Israel, Qatar, and the United States to begin a dialogue to enhance mutual security, correct misperceptions, and avoid future misgivings.
In this phone call, the Israeli Prime Minister expressed his regret that Israel's missile strike against Hamas targets in Doha unintentionally killed a Qatari serviceman. He also expressed regret that Israel violated Qatari sovereignty and declared that Israel will not attack again in the future. Don.
And Mari, on another topic, what's the latest on the tariff front?
Sure, Don. So this morning, President Trump pledged to impose a 100% tariff on any films made outside of the U.S. This is a tariff that he first announced back in May. So posting to Truth Social this morning, he says that our movie-making business has been stolen from the United States. He also adds that the California market has been hit the hardest. Many Hollywood movies are at least partially shot or filmed abroad. Countries like Canada and the UK, among others, offer incentives like tax breaks to bring American film production overseas. Now, President Trump called attention to this in May, calling those incentives a national security threat and also calling it messaging and propaganda. And in July, California Governor Gavin Newsom doubled funding for California's film and TV tax credit program in an effort to keep more film production in Hollywood. It remains unclear when or how this film tariff will be enacted and if it will affect distributors, producers, or both. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you. On President Trump's Gaza peace plan earlier today, I talked with David Wormser, senior analyst at the Center for Security Policy and former senior advisor to U.S. Vice President Cheney on the Middle East and strategic affairs. Here's that interview. Can we start? There's a lot to talk about here, but one specific thing that is very interesting. What do you make of this governance proposal? Having a apolitical party to oversee a transitional government, if you will, and this board that is going to be chaired by President Donald Trump, and that is if Hamas accepts this deal, right? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. The Israelis obviously don't want the Palestinian Authority because this whole crisis began when the Palestinian Authority assumed control of Gaza. and they radicalized the population, then lost control to Hamas. So obviously the Israelis don't want the Palestinian Authority. So it's very interesting that they're bringing in this international body. But again, it shows that Israel really only trusts the United States. And specifically, they really only trust President Trump to be pro-Israeli, or at least to have Israel's concerns at heart, or take them seriously. And as a result, while the Israelis are skeptical of an international body, skeptical that an international body will be aggressive enough to clean out the remnants of Hamas and really go through every tunnel, every hole, every room to root out the weaponry that Hamas has stowed away, they only trust the United States. And that's why I think you see the construction of this in the shape that it is and the demand by Israel that President Trump personally lead it.
You know, I get the sense from President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu that they're very confident, or at least to a certain degree, that is unseen from previous peace efforts. Can you talk to us about what is different this time?
Well, I think what they are confident about is, I think President Trump and Israel are a little different on the issue of Qatar per se. But overall, I think the Israelis and America together are very confident. This sort of clears out this nightmare of the last 2 years. If you go back 2 years, Israel and Saudi Arabia were on the verge of a peace treaty. And I think this clears out all this nightmare and underbrush and misery and debris that was left that blocked Israel from moving ahead with normalizing relations with critical Arab states like Saudi Arabia, perhaps others. And so I think there's this confidence that this unlocks things. It's not directly going to lead to it, but this was in the way. And this had to get out of the way in order to move ahead like that. There is some difference over Qatar. The Israelis see Qatar as one of the instigators of 9/11, the Muslim Brotherhood being an ideology supported by Qatar that animated Hamas as well as other regional actors that are dangerous. So the Israelis have a more dim view, but at the same time now they are in direct meetings and direct talks with the Qataris under the auspices of the United States. So even there's sort of a calming mechanism that's been set up.
And I think, David, the million-dollar question here is why should Hamas accept this deal, including demilitarizing?
Well, I think Hamas has to accept the deal for two reasons. First of all, as I think the Prime Minister said, they can do it the easy way or the hard way. The Israeli military is coming. It will disarm them and destroy them. And they can do that either by giving up now, and they can do it peacefully, take some of the clauses are safe passage, amnesty, they can go abroad. They can do that, or they can be destroyed. And so that's one incentive. The second incentive is Hamas and Qatar really are linked. Qatar is not really a neutral observer. They are really the mentor of Hamas. And if this is in Qatar's interest, and it is, then they can lean on Hamas to give up the hostages and go for a resolution. Hamas really can't buck Qatar's demand. And Qatar was shocked by the Israeli state. Israel apologized for the strike just now, but on Hamas and Qatar. But it shocked Qatar that they were vulnerable to Israeli power. And I think that scared the Qataris enough to say, okay, this is too dangerous. Hamas, you're beginning to get us in trouble and us endangered. So I think between Hamas's incentives to go to peace and Hamas's own to survive personally, you may get a deal, but I'm not sure yet. I'm not as confident as the president is. And even if they agree, they can play games. Some of the bodies may not be the Israelis. They may be somebody else's body. They have played these games before. They're somewhat cruel and sadistic on top of it all. So they could return empty caskets or bodies of people who aren't Israelis. So this has quite a ways to go. And I'm still not 100% sure. In fact, I'm on the 50-50 mark whether even Hamas will accept this.
So if you're saying that Hamas will play tricks even if it accepts the deal, I mean, I'm just thinking to myself here, wouldn't the better option be to then just to eliminate Hamas?
Well, a lot of Israelis are saying that. The president was right. Israelis are tired of this war. Israelis have been mobilized. You know, they have a citizen army. So 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, people who have jobs, families, children, they've been mobilized for 400 or 500 days already, and they're tired. They want peace. It's true. They also want their hostages back, but they also want victory. And a lot of Israelis are somewhat upset or sad or very anxious that this isn't quite the clean victory. All the terms that Prime Minister Netanyahu laid out for the war are on paper now met, but they are not yet actualized in some cases, and certainly not with the hostages yet. We'll see in a few days. So I don't know if the Israelis are as euphoric or as relieved about this as people think they may be. They're very anxious. And you're right, many Israelis are saying, wouldn't it have been better just to go all the way and finish it and do it themselves? And the IDF is responsible for disarming Gaza, and then you can set up some sort of a new government. But first, the IDF has to finish the job. So there are a lot of Israelis who say that, and you're going to see a lot of Israelis complain about this deal in the coming days because of that.
So you said earlier that one reason why Hamas might accept this deal is either accept it or be destroyed, right? So how close is Israel to actually, completely eliminating Hamas?
Well, when entities or nations fall, it's very difficult to predict the pace because as they start losing, they start crumbling, and then things can happen very quickly. But if it's linear, namely if Israel just keeps grinding away, we're looking between 1 and 2 months before Gaza, really 1 or 2 weeks before Gaza City falls, and 1 or 2 months, maybe Thanksgiving, before all of Gaza would have fell. So there really is, it really is close to Israel finishing the job otherwise as well. This is not something that if it started again, Israel would have to take another 3 years, 2 years, whatever. Now, this can change the calculus if Israel withdraws and war has to restart. That is more difficult because the Israelis then once again have to retake territory, and that will take time. But I think Israel right now, had the war gone on, was within a month or two of complete victory.
Okay, what are your thoughts on more Western countries recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN Assembly last week? And what do you think the impact of that might be?
Well, I think it made coming to this deal much harder. I think it encouraged Hamas and some Arab states to hold out more. I think it was a dead letter, and it's left Israelis bitter, and that made them much less willing to compromise as well. And it also raised expectations in the long run that could be dangerous, namely the expectation that this momentum towards statehood is an inexorable movement that won't be reversed, leads many of these nations not to really come to peace with Israel, thinking that, it'll be imposed on Israel anyway. So it's a very dangerous, even now and going forward. It can still derail this whole thing simply because of the expectation that the international community will continue to come down on Israel. And that undermines their willingness to come to peace with Israel.
Would you say because of more countries coming out and taking this position, does that indicate that support for Israel's campaign is potentially peaking here?
Well, clearly there's been some erosion of support for Israel, and it's inevitable given the images. I mean, any human being looks at what's going on in Gaza, and it's sad. I mean, I'm very pro-Israeli, but when I see these little children and there's, it's sad. The war is awful, and there's no way around it, and the images really don't sell Israel right now. But that said, I think you have to look at who recognized Palestine. It was governments that are highly unpopular with their people. The Spanish government, the French government, the British government, the Australian government, they're in an electoral collapse. So they're not acting. And by the way, the polls in those countries, show that even in these countries that are not very sympathetic to Israel, they still felt that it wasn't wise to unconditionally recognize, quote, Palestine that way. So I think that one has to differentiate between populations and the elites who are being rejected by their people.
All right, just one final question, David. If Hamas accepts whether it's this deal or some kind of other form of a deal at this stage, would you say that essentially means the end of the war completely?
No, unfortunately, I think Hamas can accept the deal, perhaps. Again, I put it really a little bit less odds than the president. But I think in their mind, this is a temporary ceasefire, and that they're going to start from day one rebuilding the option of going back to war. And moreover, the Palestinian Authority is also constantly training and preparing for an October 7th-like attack. I don't see really, unless Hamas is really, Israel maintains security control, or this international body really aggressively maintains security control, Hamas will come back at it. Hamas will never give up. It is not in their ideology to. It would not survive if it tried, if it tried to give up. And in many ways, I think that's unfortunately true even of the Palestinian Authority.
Okay, David, thank you for your valuable insight today. It's always good to talk to you.
Thank you.
With less than 48 hours until a potential government shutdown, the top 4 congressional leaders, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, will meet with President Trump at the White House. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, joins us live from the Capitol with the latest. Luis, good to see you. What are the Democrats' demands, and why are they threatening a government shutdown?
Of course, I think one of the first things we need to put in context is that right now Democrats are in the minority, both in the House and the Senate, but they're threatening to force a government shutdown if their maximalist demands are not met. Let's hear what Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has had to say about Democrats' demands.
Our position in the spending bill that has been introduced by House and Senate Democrats is a permanent extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Enough with the games that Republicans have been playing connected to the health care of the American people. And no one can trust their word on health care.
So Democrats are wanting to permanently extend some health care tax credits that were approved during the COVID era through the Democrats' reconciliation bill, also known as the Inflation Reduction One of 2021. And interestingly enough, those health care tax credits expire in October, and that expiration date was set by Democrats. But now they are demanding that the continuing resolution or any funding bill that is passed through Congress extend them permanently. And that would add at least $350 billion to government spending over the next 10 years. But that's not all. Democrats are also wanting to repeal parts of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which was the Republican reconciliation bill that passed earlier this summer. So Democrats are in the minority, and they are demanding to repeal Republican priorities that passed through their reconciliation bill to then extend Democratic priorities that Democrats already approved and set to expire this October back in 2021 during the COVID era.
And Luis, can you now talk to us about what is the Republican proposal to avert a government shutdown?
Well, Republicans want just that, to avert a government shutdown. Now, Republicans are not a fan of continuing resolutions. Actually, the House Republicans got elected on November 5th on a platform of reducing government spending. So they extended an olive branch to Democrats with a continuing resolution for 7 weeks that maintains current levels of funding. And these levels of funding were actually set by Democrats and by the Biden administration. And both Democrats and Republicans for the past 4 years have been approving continuing resolutions to keep government funding. So that's what Republicans are offering. They're offering not to reduce government spending, which is, of course, one of their top priorities, but instead keep the government open, allow for the negotiations to continue over the next 7 weeks. They're open to negotiating the extension to some level of the Affordable Care Act tax credits that Democrats so badly want. But they're their most important priority is to keep the government open.
And Luis, what is the White House position? Why is President Trump getting involved?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, the power of the purse belongs to Congress. The president shouldn't have to get involved in these funding battles, but he's invited the big four, so the top congressional leaders, Democrats and Republicans, Senate and House, to meet at the White House to try and get to an understanding that shutting down the government helps no one. It hurts the American people. Let's hear what Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary from the White House, has had to say about this.
Our message and what we want out of this is very simple. The president wants to keep the government open. He wants to keep the government funded. There is zero good reason for Democrats to vote against this clean continuing resolution. They've voted for this exact same bill 13 times in the past.
So right now, the House of Representatives has already passed this continuing resolution. It's up to the Senate to approve it or not. Even if a different deal was reached today, that bill would have to go back to the House and to the Senate, and we would still face a government shutdown. So the only way to avert a government shutdown at this point is for Democrats in the Senate to accept the House Republican passed continuing resolution. And right now, it's only 7 Senate Democrats that need to vote in order to keep the government open. Latest reports suggest that Leader Schumer, the minority leader in the Senate, has contacted Senate Democrats to see if they would be open to vote for the continuing resolution if they get some assurances from President Trump that they will negotiate in good faith to extend to some level the Affordable Care Act health tax credits that Democrats want to see extended. Back to you.
Okay, Luis, thank you for the update. Coming up after the break, the Trump administration plans to upgrade coal plants and keep them open. Officials say this investment will secure reliable energy for the U.S. Don't go away.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness, capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
The bladder control aisle. You won't shop here again. Your private business is your own. The constant struggle is over. Now there's a better way. It's HDIS. We home deliver bladder control products. We understand how you feel. For over 25 years, we've home delivered to many of the 20 million Americans who deal with incontinence. We offer all brands. We pay shipping and use plain, unmarked boxes. If we can help you or someone you care for, call for your free product sample pack and $45 in money-saving coupons. Our counselors will help you choose the right product. And unlike stores, we're always in stock. You'll get what you need. Satisfaction guaranteed. HDIS, the better way.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog, $45 in money-saving coupons, and free product samples, call 1-800-701-6159. That's 1-800-701-6159.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretane Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretane Black Ginseng. Order now at puretane.com.
For 65 years, Mathis Home has been helping you create the room of your dreams at great values. Come celebrate with anniversary savings store-wide. Check out their amazing selection of upholstered beds. Here's a hot buy. This modern queen bed is covered in a soft, luxurious fabric. It's available in 2 colors for just $5.99. There's over 100 bedrooms in stock, so you're sure to find the style just right for you with fast, free delivery. Come celebrate with 65th anniversary savings at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
The Trump administration is investing into coal power to help the U.S. in the AI race. This would upgrade coal plants and keep them open. NTD's David Lam reports.
The Trump administration announced an investment to boost America's coal industry, putting in $625 million. U.S. Energy Secretary Christopher Wright made the announcement Monday, saying the expanded programs aim to keep coal plants open. This would lower energy costs and enable the U.S. to win the global race in artificial intelligence. $350 million will go towards modernizing coal power units with reliable electric power and capacity, $175 million for projects expected to bring cheaper, reliable energy to rural communities, $50 million to extend the lifespan of coal plants by upgrading wastewater systems, and $50 million into dual fuel and efficiency using 100% natural gas. The Bureau of Land Management is making up to 13.1 million acres of federal coal available for lease, lowering royalty rates to strengthen competitiveness, and streamlining approvals for projects in Montana, Wyoming, Tennessee, and beyond. In June, lawmakers introduced laws to confront the Chinese Communist Party's growing exploitation of AI, as AI touches upon multiple sectors of the economy, including government.
President Trump understands that. He understands that last year in China opened up 93 gigawatts of coal last year. 1 gigawatt runs Denver. So China opened up effectively the power from coal for 93 Denvers.
These actions follow the passing of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Wright said that coal has been under assault for years, even though it's vital for America's industrial might. The programs also aim to add what he called pollution control so that coal plants run cleaner and better. David Lam, NTD News.
3 defense attorneys appointed by a Utah judge on behalf of Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, appeared in their first court hearing today. Utah defense attorney Catherine Nestor has been appointed as Robinson's lead attorney. Nestor has been lead or co-counsel on 9 aggravated murder cases across the country. She was joined today by 2 other public defenders who will assist with Robinson's defense. Nestor asked for a 30-day delay of a preliminary hearing in which the judge would determine if there is enough evidence to move forward with charges. She said she was not waiving her client's right to have the hearing, but she needed time to review the evidence gathered in the case so far. The judge scheduled the next hearing for October 30th. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has dropped his bid for re-election. Now Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani are reacting. Here's Cuomo.
I applaud his selflessness. You know, we often wonder, is it about us or is it about a greater calling? And I think what Mayor Adams said today speaks volumes. He said, I'm going to put my personal ambition aside for the good of the city, because he's afraid of the result if Mr. Mamdani were to win the election. And we should all be afraid of the result.
Well, I think the race continues to be the same as it was, where it's a race between us and the failed politics that we've seen, whether it's Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams. It's a politics where Donald Trump and billionaire donors are determining the actions of failed executives. We're going to show that they can't dictate the outcome of this race.
Adams spoke proudly of his tenure as mayor, but he said his now dismissed federal corruption case left voters wary. He also said constant media speculation about his future made it impossible to raise enough money to run a serious campaign. Adams did not endorse any of the remaining candidates, but he warned of insidious forces using local government to advance what he called divisive agendas. Adams' exit could potentially boost Cuomo's campaign. He casts himself as the one candidate who can beat Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani. And the U.S. might supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, which could easily reach Moscow. How Russia is now responding. We have that and more when we come back.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School. College first round draft pick, on and off the field. We were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating. But I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
Where did the time go? Somehow I lost all those years. Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here. How did I get here? I can see now.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Russia is responding to the U.S. possibly supplying Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. They could strike deep inside Russia, easily reaching Moscow. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has more.
The United States is considering sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance told Fox News on Sunday, "We're certainly looking at a number of requests from the Europeans." The Tomahawk missiles have a reach of over 1,500 miles, easily far enough to hit Moscow if fired from Ukraine. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg commented on the issue while speaking with Fox.
Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. President Zelensky asked President Trump to get Tomahawk missiles, which give you a depth. They're really good systems. America makes the best systems in the world.
Russia responded on Monday, saying the Kremlin is monitoring and assessing the situation.
The question is, who can launch these missiles? Even if they are located on the territory controlled by the Kiev regime, can they be launched solely by Ukrainians, or must they be operated by American military personnel?
The spokesman added that it's also important to know who will set and choose the targets for the missiles, if it will be Ukrainian or American soldiers. Russian President Vladimir Putin previously said that Western countries will make themselves direct parties to the conflict if they supply targeting and intelligence to fire deep inside Russia. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
Britain plans to tighten rules over how immigrants can settle permanently in the country, with immigrants expected to prove their value to society if they want to stay. This move by the Labour government comes just a week after Nigel Farage's Reform UK party promised stricter policies to reverse mass immigration. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more for us.
British Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said that division within the UK will grow if her party fails to address immigration concerns.
When people see small boats arriving on our shores, they see a country that has lost control. When they hear of widespread illegal working, undercutting British workers, they feel the system is rigged. And when they see crime unchecked on unsafe streets, they feel fearful.
Between 2021 and 2024, over 2.6 million more people entered Britain than left it. It is dubbed the Boris wave, given that it happened after then Prime Minister Boris Johnson took office on the promise to get Brexit done. Stopping mass immigration was a key reason people voted for Brexit, but the Boris wave saw immigration increase instead of decrease.
The scale and the speed of change, as well as the nature of it, has frayed trust and eroded public confidence.
Most immigrants can currently apply for what is known as indefinite leave to remain after 5 years of living in Britain. It's a status that gives them the right to live permanently in the country. The government plans to make changes so people will only qualify for this status if they pay social security contributions, are working, have a clean criminal record, do not claim benefits, can speak English to a high standard, and have a record of volunteering in their communities. Mahmood said immigrants must earn the right to live in Britain. The plan is the latest government effort to dent the rising popularity of Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, which is leading in opinion polls and running on an anti-immigration platform.
The British people, election after election after election, voted for less immigration, and instead they got mass, untrammeled, insane amounts of immigration. The cost of that is enormous. Last year alone, the British taxpayer, people watching this programme, listening to this programme as they go to work, a portion of their work today is going to pay for the £9 billion of universal credit payments, welfare payments going to foreign nationals.
Last week, Reform UK said it would scrap indefinite leave to remain completely, including for those who have been granted the status, instead replacing it with a 5-year renewable work visa, which would prevent holders from accessing welfare benefits. Reform hopes this will reverse the Boris wave and help tackle mass immigration. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Ensuring children are guided in school with morals based in tradition. That's the focus of a hearing today by the Justice Department's Religious Liberty Commission. Stay tuned for that after this break.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you.
On streets across America, young people are homeless, abused, in danger. Covenant House is helping young people with nowhere else to turn, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month. You'll help provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night. Homeless young people are afraid and alone. Your monthly donation right now will show them they are loved and safe.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life.
Call or go online now and give just $19 a month. We'll send you this comforting blanket as a reminder of the difference you're making in a young person's life. Call or go online now to safeplacetosleep.org.
The DOJ's Religious Liberty Commission is holding another hearing examining the plight of spirituality in schools and how it's impacting children's upbringing. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley joins us. Jack, good afternoon. What came out of the hearing?
Good afternoon, Don. Well, we've heard from several teachers, religious school administrators, and also members of the commission, all examining the role of religion in the classroom and in imparting education to children. Many were speaking on the assassination of Charlie Kirk, saying that he stood for religious values and the importance of ensuring them for children. This also comes after the deadly shooting at a Mormon church in Michigan, in which the attacker drove his car through the church doors and opened fire, killing at least 4 people and injuring 8 others. Now, one of the panelists at the hearing included a football coach. He was fired by his school for praying after the games, but then he sued and won. Take a look.
I was being prosecuted and persecuted for a 15-second prayer on the 50-yard line after a football game. I had to sue my wife, who was the HR director for the school district. Sue your wife and see what happens. See how that feels. We almost got divorced over it. It came down to where she asked me, she said, is this worth it? What's more important, your marriage or this fight? And I had to look her in the eyes, and I had to tell her that this fight was more important. Because without this fight, I wouldn't have my marriage. I wouldn't have my faith. I wouldn't have gone with what God has asked me to do, which was to pray after every game and be thankful. That was my covenant.
Now, but even though he won that case he's discussing there, he still says other football coaches are contacting him from across the country, receiving the same kind of pushback for praying at games. Now, a teacher in Loudoun County, Virginia, also said that she faced pushback for not complying with her school's gender-affirming policies, saying that they weren't in line with her faith. The policies argue that there are more genders than just male and female. Other panelists spoke about the importance of reviving religious values and give children a direction in life. Take a look.
Because, as we heard Charlie Kirk say earlier, there is no such thing as a values-neutral classroom. Schools inevitably transmit values through both the explicit curriculum and the hidden curriculum, the unspoken lessons embedded in classroom routines, institutional norms, which topics are or not discussed.
Children in America right now are at epidemic levels of mental health crisis, and that means spiritual crisis. There has been a 62% increase in depression with older teens in the last 10 to 15 years. There's been a 189% increase with preteens in depression in the last 10 to 15 years. There's been a 70% increase in suicide with older teens and a 151% increase in suicide among preteens. Why? Because they have an existential crisis. They have not found their way to God. When people find God, their health improves, doors open, relationships blossom.
Now, the commission will hold more hearings later this year, and they'll provide President Trump with a report in the spring about recommendations for executive orders to strengthen religious liberty in America. Don?
Okay, Jack, thank you. Vice President J.D. Vance and House Speaker Mike Johnson are talking about government shutdown. Let's tune in.
Down. We have disagreements about health care policy, but you don't shut the government down. You don't use your policy disagreements as leverage to not pay our troops, to not have essential services of government actually function. You don't say the fact that you disagree about a particular tax provision is an excuse for shutting down the people's government and all the essential services that come along with it. If you look at what Chuck Schumer has said in the past consistently, it's whatever our disagreements are, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk about them. Let's figure out a bipartisan solution, but you don't shut the government down. In other words, you don't put a gun to the American people's head and say, unless you do exactly what Senate and House Democrats want you to do, we're going to shut down your government. That's exactly what they're proposing out there. Now, we have to remember, they're very frustrated. They say that they're very frustrated about the fact that this negotiation has not taken place until today. But if you look at the original thing they did with this negotiation, it was a $1.5 trillion spending package, basically saying to the American people, we want to give massive amounts of money, hundreds of billions of dollars to illegal aliens for their health care while Americans are struggling to pay their health care bills. That was their initial foray into this negotiation. We thought it was absurd. We told them it was absurd. And now they come in here saying that if you don't give us everything that we want, we're going to shut down the government. We think that's preposterous. We think it's totally unacceptable, and we think the American people are going to suffer because these guys won't do the right thing. Now, I want to make one final point here. You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. Well, we know that American health care policy is broken. We've been trying to fix it for the 8 months that we've been in office, but every single thing that they accuse about being broken about American health care is policy the Democrats have supported for the past decade. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. The Speaker would love to do it. The Senate Majority Leader would love to do it. Let's work on it together, but let's do it in the context of an open government that's providing essential services to the American people. That's all that we're proposing to do, and the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind, but we're going to see. I'll let the Speaker say a few words.
Thank you, Vice President Vance. I want to thank the President as well. They showed strong leadership today. They invited the 4 leaders over here because the President is operating in good faith, and he demonstrated that very well. The problem is that Chuck Schumer and Leader Jeffries refuse to acknowledge the simple facts. Let's review what the simple facts are. As the Vice President was saying, this is the common sense thing to do. This is the right thing to do. This is the simple thing to do. By way of review, the House is getting back to the way the regular appropriations process is supposed to work. 12 separate appropriations bills passed through the House Appropriations Committee, 3 off the floor. The Senate doing their work as well. All this in bipartisan fashion, by the way. They passed 3 bills in the Senate. Those bills don't match up exactly. So for the first time in years, since 2019, you have a conference committee that is being constituted between the House and the Senate. This is the way a bill becomes a law. They work out the differences. All this is happening in bipartisan fashion. The problem is we've run out of clock. September 30th is the end of the fiscal year, so we need a little more time. So what we did in the Republican majority is the right, responsible, simple thing. A clean, continuing resolution, a short-term, nonpartisan continuing resolution. It's only 24 pages in length. Leader Thune has a copy if you want to see the exhibit. There's nothing partisan in here. No policy writers, none of our big party preferences, because we want to do the right thing by the American people and allow more time for negotiation. Now, there's a reason that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have come out here, stomped the feet, saying that they can't go along with this. They're trying to bring in extraneous issues. They issued a counter proposal. You should go take a look at what they requested. $1.5 trillion in new spending that is unrelated to the ongoing appropriations process. They wanted to, as you said, restore taxpayer-funded benefits, okay? Hard-working taxpayers in America. They want to take your funds and give that for benefits to illegal aliens. They want to restore that because we got rid of it. They want to prop up left-leaning media outlets. $500 million they threw in on top of that. $1.5 trillion on a 7-week stopgap funding measure. We're not going to do that. They know we can't do that. And we never have in the past. During the Biden administration, there were 13 threatened shutdowns, the Republicans in the minority did the right thing. We kept the government open. We're simply asking for the Democrats to do the same. Again, I want to thank President Trump for the strong, solid leadership. He listened to the arguments, and they just wouldn't acknowledge the simple facts. I want to thank Vice President here for showing his leadership as well. If the Democrats make the decision to shut the government down, the consequences are on them, and I think it's absolutely tragic. We've never said that was a good idea. We never believed it is. And I want you to remember, when we voted in the House, we passed it out of the House. The House has done its job. We did that almost 2 weeks ago. Every Democrat in the House except one voted to shut the government down. That is the record. And don't forget it. I'll ask Leader Thune to step in here.
Well, thanks, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Vice President. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is what we're talking about. 24 pages. It's a continuing resolution to fund the government through November the 21st. I don't know where they're saying this is some huge partisan thing. This is something we do fairly routinely. And when the Democrats had the majority on 13 different occasions, they had the majority, President Biden was in the White House, we passed continuing resolutions to fund the government. This is purely and simply hostage-taking on behalf of the Democrats. The Republicans are united. House Republicans, Senate Republicans, President Trump. The House has passed a clean funding resolution to fund the government until November the 21st. It's clean, it is bipartisan, and it is short-term. But it gives us enough time to finish the appropriations process, which is the way we should be funding the government. So Republicans in the House, in the Senate, President united, they've passed the bill. This is sitting right now at the Senate desk. We could pick it up and pass it tonight. We could pick it up and pass it tomorrow before the government shuts down. And then we don't have a government shutdown. It is totally up to the Democrats, because right now they are the only thing standing between the American people and the government shutting down. We're all in favor of funding the government. And this is something that's been done routinely 13 different times by the Democrats when they had the majority. So to me, it's purely a hostage-taking exercise on the part of the Democrats. We're willing to sit down and work with them on some of the issues they want to talk about, whether it's the extension of premium tax credits with reforms. We're happy to have that conversation. But as of right now, this is a hijacking of the American people, and it's the American people who are going to pay the price.
Russ, you want to say a few words?
Sure. We want to keep this government open. It is not good for the American people to have the government shut down for any period of time. We will manage it appropriately, but it is something that can all be avoided. It can all be avoided by accepting a reasonable position, which is what the House has passed and what sits at the Senate desk, which is to continue to fund the government with a short-term continuing resolution. It has never been a viewpoint that $1.5 trillion is a reasonable amount of spending to be included on a short-term CR. This is hostage-taking. It is not something that we are going to accept, and we hope that the Democrats come back from the brink, fund this government, and allow us to move forward. Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Vice President, so just to be clear, is there room for negotiation here with Democrats? And you mentioned you believe that we are headed toward a government shutdown. Is the federal government preparing to fire federal workers if the government does indeed shut down?
Well, first of all, we have to keep essential services functioning as well as possible if the Democrats shut down the government, and Russ has been tasked with making sure that's possible. Now, you asked about negotiations. One of the things I admired about the president, but frankly the entire team's approach during the conversation we just had with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries was, they have some crazy ideas. Giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens for health care, that's a crazy idea. Funding transgender surgeries in Peru, that's a crazy idea. But they had some ideas that I actually thought were reasonable, and they had some ideas that the president thought was reasonable. What's not reasonable is to hold those ideas as leverage and to shut down the government unless we give you everything that you want. There were multiple times where Leader Jeffries or Leader Schumer would say, you know what, we should be doing this, and the President of the United States would say, yeah, absolutely, let's have that conversation, but we're going to do it in the context of the people's government being open. We're not going to let you take the people's government hostage and then give you everything that you want. And that's really the state of the negotiation. Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have a negotiation, but we're not going to shut down the government because we won't give the Democrats everything that they want. Caitlin.
Can you respond to what Senator Schumer said, that there were aspects about health care ending for certain people that the president was learning about for the first time in that meeting? And was the president open to a deal on the ACA subsidies?
Well, I'm highly skeptical that the president was learning about it for the first time thanks to Chuck Schumer. But what I will say is, look, we have put a $50 billion rural hospital fund into the big beautiful bill that we passed a few months ago, because we know that under Biden administration's policies, there are a lot of small town hospitals, a lot of rural health care that was getting shut down and that was struggling. We're trying to fix that problem. In fact, we're happy to work with Democrats to fix that problem. We want to work across the aisle to make sure that people have access to good health care. We are not going to let Democrats
And you're just
shut
watching
down
now
the government.
Republicans blaming Democrats for a potential government shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson saying that Democrats refuse to vote for a clean continuing resolution that is only 24 pages. All right, we'll have more on that for NTD Evening News, which is at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're going to take a quick break now.